one of the most important visionary politicians on the planet right now, and we need to talk to him about a wide variety of topics. So thanks for returning to the show, Nigel. Appreciate it. I'm going to let Raheem take
Hello
the
there.
wheel.
Good morning.
Good morning to you as well, even though I believe it's early afternoon for you. So it's a
couple of bottles down.
Yeah, that's the joke with Raheem. Raheem has managed to drink all morning long, Nigel. It's only 8 a.m. here. He's been drinking warm beer.
Well, I trained him. Yeah, he worked for me, you see, so I trained him well, didn't I?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, so I want to talk about Theresa May. I want to talk about the French elections coming up, and so much more. So, Raheem, why don't you let her rip?
Yeah, Nigel, thanks for joining us. I suppose the most interesting question for people over here, at least the question I've been asked non-stop here over the last 24 hours, is what is going on? Why has the Prime Minister called this snap election? And why right now? Why just before summer, just after the local elections, just after the Brexit vote, when everything was starting to calm down? What is it, do you think, that has led Theresa May to calling this election?
Well, I thought she'd do it earlier, to be honest with you. I thought we'd had the election in May as opposed to in June. She's massively ahead of the Labour Party. She's on course to win a majority in the House of Commons of, who's to say, 120 seats, 130 seats, something like that. But that's been the case for some months. So I've been saying for ages I thought she'd do it. But in the end, I'm guessing what pushed her was that in the 2015 general election, the Conservative Party pretty willfully broke spending rules in lots and lots of our, we call them constituencies, you might say districts, and they were facing potentially a whole series of prosecutions, up to 20 members of Parliament potentially facing reruns in their seats. And I think you add those things together, and she thought, you know what, I'm going to go for it, I'm going to do it. And the other thing from her perspective is it buys her time, because we're due to complete the Brexit process by May, the end of March 2019. She did not want a general election. Immediately after that, she's now kicked it 3 years beyond. So she's selling herself as being the great Brexit PM, but I suspect she's giving herself an opportunity of softening the impact of Brexit.
Okay, so what would that look like, Nigel? I'm very curious of what a soft Brexit would look like versus a hard Brexit.
Well, what it looks like is we've technically left because we're no longer part of the treaty, but we have a relationship a bit like Norway, where we're part of what they call the European single market. We still have to obey all relations that are made and passed in Brussels and Strasbourg. We still have a degree to which European courts have jurisdiction over our citizens, and we're probably still paying, a contribution stroke membership fee of some kind, and free movement of people would continue for a transition phase of 3, 4, 5 years. So we'd have voted to leave, but we'd be half out, half in.
There was the news breaking just now, Nigel, that Douglas Carswell, the Member of Parliament for Clacton, who famously defected to UKIP in 2014 and then away from UKIP just last month, has announced himself that he's not going to stand at this election. The question on everyone's lips at the moment is Nigel Farage going to stand at this election?
Well, I'm thinking about it. I'm weighing things up. And if I do stand, I feel very confident I'd win. But then I've got to work out. I came out of business into politics because I believed in the Brexit cause passionately. How best do I serve that over the course of the next couple of years? Do I do it best sitting in the House of Commons on the backbenches, or do I do it best by staying as the leader of a group in the European Parliament, able to do battle up close with EU commissioners and presidents and all the rest of it? And that is the calculation I'm making right now.
Nigel Farage is our guest on Breitbart News Daily. He's a member of the European Parliament from the UKIP party. He's also a Fox News contributor. So, Nigel, one thing that's been interesting from the American perspective, and Theresa May presents herself very well as a sort of a moderate conservative, but one thing that's been interesting to observe, people who follow this stuff closely, is that she's really sort of ripped off the best parts of your platform and co-opted them. And is that something that you find at all frustrating, or is that encouraging?
I've listened to some of her speeches this year. She has used the exact same words and phrases that I've been using for over 20 years, and by the way, I've been condemned for 20 years, and she's now using them as Tory Prime Minister and being praised to the heavens by her own party and some sections of our traditional media. The only way you realistically can look at it is that it's a victory, because I think myself and UKIP have completely changed the whole landscape of British politics. The only question you have to ask yourself is, does she actually mean it, or is she saying it purely for short-term electoral advantage?
Nigel, I just want to get back to this this question about standing, because it is important for people. The issue is out there, and people are very exercised about it. Worries that UKIP doesn't really project the strength that it did under your leadership. They want a flag carrier out there in the country, and they see you as it. I'd just like to press you on that. Are you leaning towards or leaning against at the moment? And do you have any words for Carswell, who says he's not going to stand now?
No, I don't. I'm afraid I think he's been so thoroughly dishonest with everybody, including his constituents, that I'm not even going to stoop to commenting on his withdrawal from politics. I'm just not going to get involved in that. Am I? Well, I'm tempted by both, Raheem. Of course I am. I'm tempted by both, but I've got to make a rational judgment as to how I can best help the Brexit process. Clearly, one would have visibility in the House of Commons, but equally, the negotiations take place in Brussels over the next 2 years, and the European Parliament has the right of veto at the end of a 2-year process. So, they're both potentially very important positions to be in. I've got to work out which one's the most important.
Nigel Farage, a couple more topics I want to get to with you. Paul Ryan's in the United Kingdom right now and has been making the rounds at a few meetings. We've been covering it at Breitbart News. The topic of TTIP came up, which is the big trade deal that you guys are involved with. What happened with this meeting with Paul Ryan? Who were the players there, and what did we learn?
Well, I think the important thing is that Paul Ryan made a very positive statement last night about a future trade deal between the United States of America and the United Kingdom. And that I was really, really pleased to hear. I think there is mutual benefit for both of us in doing this. And look, TTIP is dead. TTIP is dead. The American administration don't want it, and the European Union can't agree on it. So don't worry about TTIP, that big deal that tried to pretend it was about trade, but actually was about global corporate interests. That's finished. That's over. But Ryan was very positive about the relationship between our two great countries.
Just finally, Nigel, on France. Obviously, a big moment this Sunday for the anti-globalist movement. Marine Le Pen and the Front National look like they're marching towards victory in the first round, at least, of the French elections, a two-part process, because the French always have to do things a little bit more difficultly. Do you have any predictions for Sunday, and what do you think are the global ramifications for a Le Pen victory in this first round?
Well, the first round is, as you say, the first round. At the moment, the opinion polls have a neck and neck with Emmanuel Macron. I suspect she'll win it outright. I think, rather like Brexit and Trump, sometimes voters are a little shy, shall we say, with pollsters to say what they really think. The real question is, who does she run off against? There is an outside chance, and it's an outside chance, that a fellow called Mélenchon, who's basically a communist, could come through the middle. I don't think he will, although ironically, he might be a communist, but he's pretty anti-EU as well. So it'll be her against Macron or Fillon. I would predict this. If it's Francois Fillon, Fillon will win. Why? He was the French Prime Minister for 6 years. The French people know him. He looks French. He sounds French. He's a strong Roman Catholic. And he would say some very strong things on Islam, etc. If it's Macron, the young pretty boy, who is this sort of globalist, centrist, who everybody thinks is wonderful, about sort of French Tony Blair when he was younger, he's never been tested under fire. He's never held elected office. And I think in the absolute heat of that fortnight, I think Marine Le Pen would perform better than him. If it's her v. Macron, the game is really on. She could beat him. If she was to win, then it's the end of the European.
It's the end of the European Union. Nigel, I just want to bring one last thing to your attention here. It's not so much a question as it is a braggadocious statement on my behalf. When you first called me and asked if Trump had a chance, I said yes. When you called me once and asked if Jeremy Corbyn had a chance to lead the Labour Party, I said yes. And we were having a PFL at Shepherd's in Westminster, and I said to you that who was going to win the French presidential election. I bumped into him on the street just after that lunch that we had. So I'm going to stick with I think Macron wins in the second round, because I've called all of them so far. I have to say I'm going to just stick with my gut instinct on that.
Now, Nigel, I had a... Yeah, go ahead, Nigel.
Go on. No, I was going to say that you may well be right, Raheem, but against Macron, she has a genuine chance. This bloke has never been tested in battle, and it's pretty rough and pretty tough out there. If it's Fillon, she's got no chance. All right?
So, Nigel, I know hopefully we'll be able to have you back before the vote goes down to get into more detail, but could you just, for the uninitiated, particularly the American audience, could you explain some of the similarities and differences between your political platforms and Marine Le Pen's?
Well, traditionally, the Front National comes with a sort of deep root in the old Vichy France, very anti-Semitic, very chauvinistic, not particularly attractive to much of the outside world. To be fair to Marine Le Pen, she's come in as leader, she's moderated it, she's made it more sensible, she's made people far less of it, and actually her position, her own position is now, I would say, a sensible, moderate, mainstream Eurosceptic position that is being held by more and more parties across Europe. You know, people are not scared of her as they were with her father.
But there is some fear of her.
There's some fear of her because, as I say, the party was dogged by anti-Semitism in the past. But if you ask her that question, she will say, look, that was the past. Today is the present. I feel this so strongly, I've even got rid of my own father from the party. So you can take her at her word if you want to. You haven't got to. But I do think she's done a very good job in getting that party into fit shape.
Very compelling, as always. That's Nigel Farage. He's a member of the European Parliament for the UKIP party, also a Fox News contributor. Thanks, Nigel. Talk to you soon, sir.